knew what's about to happen to you. You'd leave now.
Some consider these traits to be toxic, such as undesirable in the men of today. We consider these traits such as these not only to be desirable, but to be appreciated and celebrated. Welcome to the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, hosted by and la Reina Creole. Welcome to the safe space for the toxic male.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Lorena Creole, and of course, with me is my wing woman, her of the Positive Fandom and the Burnett Work, and of course, this is the Toxic Male Appreciation Show, where we appreciate those quote unquote toxic male traits, aka traditional masculinity, on this show. And I'm so glad to be running the show with my girl. How are you doing, my dear?
Lorena, I am doing great. Certainly, it is, as I said, winding down the end of the summer, which I never like to see, but just enjoying things and can't be better. Always love being here talking about some toxic male appreciation, Lorena.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I am quite excited. And I'm almost just kind of remiss that we did not feature this actor before, but there was a certain special that I saw on Netflix that immediately made me think of our subject. And that, of course, would be Johnny Depp. If you have Netflix right now, they have the limited series Depp versus Heard. I think they also did one for Kim and Kanye. I think I'm getting my streaming services mixed up, but I know they did one for Kim and Kanye, and I was like, who cares? Who cares? This one popped up, and I immediately clicked play, and it is what I would call it's actually pretty fair. What it does is it amalgamates, there's all those threads that were kind of going on, like LawTube, TikTok, broadcast TV, podcasters, all these things going on individually. But this particular series, which I believe is about 3 episodes, puts all those together in the timeline for the infamous and very successful for Johnny Depp, his defamation lawsuit against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. Now, have you had a chance to check out any of these episodes?
I have, Lorena. And of course,
Josie.
First of all, I was surprised that it was so thorough. This is one of the best documentaries I've seen. It's actually a documentary about the coverage of the trial for me more than anything else, because they don't bore you with whether this person is right or wrong. They do not care. This documentary is about how sensational this case was, and certainly how sensational the coverage was. And to be honest with you, my take-home message of all of this is how involved people got. The good and the bad, it didn't even matter. It was kind of interesting to see how excited people were about different things. And something, in the end, Lorena, conversations need to be had about a lot of these things. I think, if anything, it caused people to speak to one another, caused them to express their feelings. And that's kind of ideal when we want our society to kind of move forward and heal from all sorts of crazy stuff that we've been seeing. So I have to say, for this is a limited series. It's 3 full-length episodes, like let's say 45 minutes to an hour, filled constructive information. They don't want you to draw any conclusions they have. What they're really showing you is how it went down. And I do think, Lorena, you're right. You're exactly right about what they showed in regards to the threads. And they took the crumbled mess and made it into an organized way to understand what we saw for the first time in history. Really, this is the first time in history we've seen so much social media in there. But we also saw court TV. You know, those guys never go anywhere. You know,
No.
they're doing court 24/7. But what about those court people on YouTube who we know and love, like Riketta Law, like Runkle and the Bailey, all those guys who we absolutely know and love. They're very professional, and it's great to see them. But certainly, I do like that we got a chance to see the expansiveness for the first time in a long time of what social media actually has become, especially during the pandemic.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. Instead of being relegated to what you would see like on court TV, because if you think back to, I would probably say the most sensational trial that we've seen with television coverage since the Depp versus Heard case would be OJ. And what were we relegated to with that? Court artist drawings, court TV. I mean, granted, there wasn't social media at the time, but I guess the substitute for social media were the tabloids, and they were constantly putting this stuff out, you know, about the trial. And then we get to this, and you're absolutely right with this. It's an excellent documentary, does not take sides. If anything, I liken it to spilling all of the tea, whether it's sweet, whether it's bitter, whether it's hot, whether it's lukewarm, it's all out there. And you see how this trial evolved, how people got involved in it. Just, you know, even a look, an uncomfortable look nonetheless, because it is, you know, their intimate lives, into the type of marriage, you know, that they had, and even the competence and incompetence at times with the council, and just how roasted they would get on social media because of it. I would highly suggest people watch this. Again, it's not about taking a side. They just literally put together all those timelines of information that was just everywhere, and it's in a convenient 3-hour package that really does make you think about the impact of social media, the impact of having this trial broadcast on television, and also the very real situation of what happens when men are subjected to domestic violence. This was not something that people saw a lot of. It's something that, for the most part, is shamed. If you're a woman and you're a domestic violence victim, it's more like there's more community around you. But if you're a man and you're subjected to domestic violence, you're either shamed for it or not really taken seriously. So this trial did a lot to bring that out, and I'm really glad it did, because it could have been any person with a defamation trial like this, but this is Johnny Depp. This is Captain Jack Sparrow. You know, this is someone who a lot of us have grown up seeing on television, seeing in films.
Mhm.
He's very much, and I don't think it's an overstatement to say this, he is very much beloved by his fans. So I think for a lot of people, for Johnny Depp to come out and basically open up his life to what was happening in his marriage was just even more impactful, because it's like, if it could happen to him, who couldn't it happen to?
Yeah, I think you make a good point with this, and certainly, I think that if anything, I think this particular, and of course, you know, I'm oversimplifying it. I know it was a number of trials over a number of period of time, and we're talking about a number of different things that happened. But it was nice to hear a man talk about his emotions and feelings, because we love you guys. But you know, I just do like to see, even though this was somewhat of a distressing situation, because this was not easy for him to go into court and talk about all this personal stuff.
Right.
But we did get to hear, I felt, a lot of things I think he probably wouldn't have shared in a normal setting, but he was under this court presence and he had to do this in order to talk about what happened. And certainly we heard a lot of what happened. And to be honest with you, I don't think that by him sharing the good and bad of the circumstance, that it was detrimental in any way. I think we needed to hear it all. We needed to hear all this. Now, it is their marriage and it is private, but it's a court case, so that opened
Exactly.
it up. But certainly we needed to hear certain things. And I think that this might even be a situation for me when I look at a circumstance like this, of just even being able to listen to what he had to say in a form where he could speak clearly and wasn't stifled by anybody kind of pounding at him or drilling him or treating him like a hostile witness. This was more of a free form way that he was communicating often. And I did like seeing him write down his notes so he could remember what he was going to say and things like that. But, his face, which, you kind of like see this picture here, but inside, I do realize that this is kind of incredibly painful and not something that he's getting pleasure of doing, but he did do it. And I also want to say that for the decision, now I don't remember whose decision it was to have the cameras in there. I don't really care whose decision it was.
It was Johnny's decision.
I feel like maybe he needed to, for people to find out a little bit more about him. And, we're all big fans of his, and this was something else that was important. But I also think that, and this is going to sound strange, but I think it also benefited Amber too. Because if she shrilled away from this and didn't stand up, regardless as to whether she's right or wrong, like this, I think it would have been, a big disgrace. If you're going to go ahead and put yourself out on the line and say this happened, then you got to stand up in court and say, and she did that. So that was also very interesting. And I also feel sad that things didn't work out between them, because they seemed like they were in love. And certainly, I don't think when they first became involved with one another, they had any detrimental feelings towards one another. This is not a murder trial, this is
no.
But I almost wondered if things had been different for them. But, things might have been very, such a different outcome. However, we needed to hear him. And this was so important. I don't remember the last time I've heard a man talk this much about relationship or his feelings and different things that happened between him and someone he cared about. I don't think I've ever seen it in such detail. What about you, Lorena?
No, I have not really seen it either on television from someone of his stature. I've watched a lot of reality TV. I watched a lot of reality court TV, and we'll see, John Q. Public, still very rare, who will talk about things that happened in their marriage, even if they are quote unquote at fault, the remorse that there isn't anything that they can do to repair things, or making the case of, I would like to repair things if you're open to it. So this was, I think, in a lot of ways, Johnny put this publicly, had the cameras in there, not just about him. And you're 100% right, for both be able to show Kim and Amber basically prove their case in real time for all of us, to see. But for the people out there that do not have the types of resources that he has, to kind of give them encouragement, to come forward if they need to, or if they see things that they saw during the trial with regards to what went on between him and Amber. Because let's face it, love is hard. It's very, very hard. You're dealing with two very imperfect people, and you're dealing with two people who are constantly under, scrutiny by the press, by John Q. Public. Their life is in a fishbowl. So if there's anything or any warning signs that people can see, then perhaps they can take that back to work on their own particular relationships. So that's another thing that I kind of took that it took from that, because this is the details of a marriage, which is why divorces are so messy, because this is now public record. So things that you may have said in the heat of anger that you really did not mean, but you're human and you're imperfect and you just needed to get it out, and you have it show up in court. Did you or did you not say X, Y, and Z? Yeah, I apologize. That wasn't the heat of the moment. And you could tell any rational person would know. Really, they were just fed up. They didn't really mean that they wanted, bury their spouse out in the backyard or something like that. Didn't really mean that.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think and as I said, and of course, as Lorena and I have both already said, we've covered hours and hours and hours of this trial because we happen to be on, I think we were on the same channel at the time that this trial was, the second half of the trial
Yes.
coming to its closure. And incidentally, we've covered, hours and hours and hours of talking about this topic. And certainly there was a lot to talk about. I think that this documentary was very interesting because they made a point of telling you how they met. And she admitted, that she was a young actress who didn't have a lot of experience, and she was flattered by Depp. But let's just be honest, Depp is smoking hot. So there, I said it. And
I'm sorry, I stopped on this. I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is yet another example of how they cobbled together the social media that was going on. And I think this is a guy who's on TikTok, and he's DUI guy. That name is funny. Sorry.
Well, he's a legitimate raw law unfiltered. And I think that that's very interesting because, he's talking about people who've gotten in trouble. They're going to need legal counsel. You don't want anybody who's going to screw you over. You're heading to prison if you've got a DUI. You don't really want to speak to somebody who's going to smoke, kind of flatter you. You just want to get the hell out. This guy might be, he's like, raw, it's law, it's unfiltered. And I think it's interesting, Lorena, because we did get to see, I think for the first time in a long time, since you have that screenshot up there, it's really important because we got to see different types of social media outlets, and they represent themselves different ways. For example, for him to go ahead and tell you that it's unfiltered, he's telling you right there, look, we might be saying some things that we might not be necessarily don't take too much heart into it. We're just discussing things. We want to get these feelings and emotions out. And maybe, if anything, getting all those feelings and emotions out about this particular case and about the topics that you and I have yet to bring up with Will was one of the keys of why it was so popular. And in the beginning, as I said, they did such a great job with this documentary telling us how Amber even admits that, she was flattered. Of course she's flattered, as Johnny Depp. She was flattered. He took interest in her. He's incredibly charming. He's very smooth. He's like a Casanova. If I could say that, Antonio Banderas is one of those men, who has that charm.
This is true.
And Johnny Depp, if he asked you out to go out, yeah, I would say yes now. So, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
I think he's very charismatic. Also comes off as being really sweet. And certainly he was defending himself because there was a character assassination. And it wasn't just because of the Me Too movement in my thoughts, Lorena. I think that, it was completely circumstances beyond his control. So it's not like he could go up there and say, well, that wasn't me or whatever, and it would work. That was not going to happen. Forever in the eyes and the light of everybody else, he was going to be defamed by these comments. Now, so because of that, I think it was very important for him to do that. And this is not the first time that someone's ever come up for a defamation case by things that have been said about them. And usually, a lot of times it can be the tabloids that are taken into court for this, right? The Global sued for saying whatever. And this, of course, what makes this even more interesting is that the person that he was complaining about was, his soon-to-be ex-wife or ex-wife at the time. So that made it even more interesting. So, certainly, Lorena, and I think you made such a good point about this as we started to talk about this. I was amazed at how wonderfully they presented, the guy who wore the Spider-Man mask.
Oh, he was my favorite.
Isn't he a sweetheart? He gets up there, he says, "Look, I know nothing about this. I just want to see them." And I'm like, he's so sweet. And it's the curiosity that we have in entertainment that drives many of us to be on this platform to enjoy this. And who wouldn't want to
Trying to see
see
so I
Amber
can
Heard and
find him.
Johnny Depp up front so close? Oh my
I
God.
know. Who wouldn't? I mean, people were just like trying to see if they could get to the courthouse, because this wasn't the trial that was over in the UK, which was a joke, but that's just my personal opinion. This was over here in America,
Mhm.
where the trial by jury system is a little different. People were just like, Johnny is on home soil, we're going to go and support. Of course, Amber had her fans as well, but it was interesting seeing both just your regular garden variety fans, just like, I just want to see them. I just want to go to the courthouse, and I want to see them. Like, here's two law
Yes,
tubers.
yes, I love
Heard
it. Oh yeah.
between Rikaina and between that umbrella guy. I mean, I would watch the trial coverage and just listen, to them, because I didn't, because I was, we worked during the day. So couldn't watch it, but at least you could put the commentary on and hear it. And they would keep you, up to date with what was going on with, explaining certain things that were going on in the trial. Here's like another YouTuber who, these are people who, they're just breaking it down to why you and I should care about what's going on, with this particular trial. There's another one with Rikida as well. So you see Johnny there, you see like the courtroom, in there, and we just all watch this. People were just fascinated.
Absolutely. And something I did want to also say, Lorena, that fortunately over the years that you and I have been on YouTube, this is something else that I want to say. We've had the fortunate experience to kind of get to know some of these people, not all of them, but some of these YouTubers as well. So just to be fair, in saying what our affiliation is with some of these other YouTubers or
Yes.
other platform people, we have sometimes spoken to them, commented to them, I've sent, super chats, things like that. And I can't remember to whom or how many or what, but I did just want to put that out there so there isn't the notion that we don't know who they are and we're not familiar with their work or anything.
Right. We know them. We kind of swim in the same ocean, so to speak. So yes, these two we definitely have interacted with them. So it's even this simple picture of
Yeah.
somebody watching it on their phone. Who do you know would watch a court case on their phone unless it was for somebody like Johnny Depp?
Exactly. And I also wanted to say, I mean, and there is so much to say because we lived through this. We kind of lived through a lot of the
Yes.
online version, and they make a good point. It's the documentaries in three blocks. The second block is just about, for me, about the social media coverage and what happened with it. And I think it was very interesting. It might have been at the second height of TikTok. It was during the pandemic. It certainly was. Very interesting because I think the second trial his or hers? It was hers, right?
Second was his.
With his. So okay, so
Girl.
so this particular documentary puts it side by side so you can see it as if it happened at the same time. But they did, kind of, it was not congruous not at the same time. I'm saying that correctly. But the point that I'm making is I did like that at some point during that point there was this shift because by the time that second trial took place, and I could be off by a year or two, guys, Amber Heard's popularity had changed. And so, because she had this change in popularity, not during the marriage, but by the time this second trial came around in 2021, right, Lorena? Um,
That's correct.
Certainly, she now had suddenly become more of a household name. Now, she was popular because she was a beautiful woman, a great actress, and married to Johnny Depp. But now She had starred in a $1 billion movie, Aquaman, by this time. She'd
Mm-hmm.
also been in a very popular film called The Danish Girl, which won several Oscars, I think, or maybe just one
Oh, I
Oscar.
didn't know
For
about
Freddie
that.
Redmayne. Yeah, he won. She was in it, and it starred Freddie Redmayne. But it doesn't matter. Listen, the point is, is that now all of a sudden she was getting roles. She was in The Stand, which is an okay film, but now all of a sudden she's getting roles. She's a working
Mm-hmm.
actress. And so now her status has changed a little bit in what's at stake for her versus him. So, when they first met, that was, she wanted obviously to still be a star, but now she was a
Right.
full-fledged star by 2021. And so,
Mm-hmm.
the way that people perceived her was a little different. I think that now, incidentally, because it was, I wouldn't call it post Me Too movement. I feel like it was still deep in the Me Too movement. I think we're still in the Me Too movement. That's something that I don't think she could escape from because of the nature of her comments. And so as a result of this, it was something that was put on the back burner for a long time. During the pandemic, people don't necessarily want to talk about Me Too. Although it kept coming up and up again with articles, professional journalistic articles, and maybe not so professional journalistic articles, but it wasn't on the tip of my tongue. I didn't want to talk about Me Too. It wasn't necessarily a popular topic, but it seemed like every now and then someone was getting canceled on social media.
That's true.
In this
Mm-hmm.
time period. And it was a lot of times, right, Lorena, for Me Too. And I remember looking, I was like, this is really terrible. They even have relationship counselors on the sets now, and all this sort of stuff was happening as a result of it. And then this final wrap up, let's say, of the court was coming in. And, I didn't care how it necessarily connected itself to it, but it had no choice because of the topic. So that became something. Then the topics of whether or not this was misogyny, came into it. Then, all
Mm-hmm.
kind of social topics, but this was for real. This was not speculative. This was real determination, how people were thinking and feeling about this. And even with, let's say, people who like to have a fun time and joke about certain things, say, oh, this person said that or whatever. I just was so impressed with the types of involvement we saw by so many different people who it may not even be their number one topic of interest, but it became the most interesting thing. It outranked Elon Musk. It outranked the president. It outranked, world affairs. It outranked, unfortunately, the Ukraine involvement. It outranked so many things that it became the most popular thing online, where everybody and anybody was talking about this. And it felt like the cameras just sucked it up. It felt like a sponge. Yeah, there he is.
This is another one. I have to watch it out for 8 hours.
This lady doesn't have an opinion. She just wants to watch this thing. Look at her. She's doing her dinner. It became a social media event. Yes, we did have discussions. Lorraine and I were on panels. We're talking about this stuff, but it also became this kind of pastime. People talking about law practices and what happens. And Lorena, I liked how you put it earlier on in this broadcast about the notion of what happens during divorce proceedings, what happens when a couple breaks up, what happens when they talk about how they felt. And you said that I didn't really want to kill somebody, all these things. And we kind of got that sense, at least I got that sense from this trial. Mistakes were made and we saw those.
Yeah.
And that comes out during proceedings like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does. Now that I look back, I think I'm trying to remember something that Amber had said. She's like, well, maybe, I shouldn't have said it particularly, this way. And yeah, it's a very intimate look into someone's private life. And it's not behind, it's not in a courtroom that's off limits to us. We actually are watching this, as it's it's going on. But yeah, you're right. Everybody, I mean, there's Andy Signor, another person. I know, Andy. I've been on a panel with him. It was a couple of years ago that it was, but Popcorn Planet, everyone just giving their input into not only input into this trial, but disseminating what they saw and how, how they kind of interpreted things, and you're right. At this particular point in time, well, before this trial, because I know for me, when I heard about Johnny Depp, Amber Heard thing going on, it's over in the UK, I'm not really paying attention to it until a certain tape dropped. And I think that was right before they were preparing to have trial here. And people were just like, oh my gosh. Because I think it was leaked. If I'm not mistaken, I think that tape was leaked and it got out. And it's just like, oh my gosh. Because all you had heard was Johnny's an abuser, Johnny's, misogynist, he did this to me, he did that to me. And I'm part of Me Too and all of that. And we had to kind of take that at face value, or like he said, she said. But when that tape came out and you heard, and it was uncomfortable to listen to, and you heard it, it's like, something doesn't seem quite right with the picture that Amber had painted. And I think that was starting to hook people like, okay, discovery is going to be something else. Cross-examination is going to be something else, where we're going to actually get the real story.
Absolutely. And what was so interesting about it too was that at the beginning, and okay, let's say previous to the video, Amber was directly asked, more or less, I could be paraphrasing, guys, so don't get upset with me if I'm not getting the exact quotes. Yeah. She was asked, did he abuse you, more or less? And she conceded, yes, I was abused by him. And I think that was maybe one of the turning points where, that was a somewhat more serious and direct accusation than that, than opposed to leaving it up in the air, which is what all of this was about, was how it was left up in the air. And certainly no one wants to have anybody speculating about whether, an assault took place. I mean, that's not fun speculation for anyone, and certainly not ideal, and certainly, a bit abusive, if you ask me. But that's where it was at. And so when she kind of drew the line and saying, yes, he did, suddenly she finds herself on the defensive for the exact same situation. And, I think that I don't think she didn't think that was going to come out during the trial. I don't think she was surprised that anyone found that. I think that she's incredibly defensive, or was incredibly defensive in the court, not because people were looking at her as a liar, but because she knew that she also was not 100% infallible.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Lorraine?
Exactly. Now, I would have to agree with you, because again, the UK trial, which I think Johnny Depp, I think he sued the Sun, one of those three rags over there that that come out with information like
Globe,
this.
the Sun,
yeah, I think it was the Sun, because I think when I asked someone which one was worse, the Daily Mail, the Globe, or the Sun seemed to be the worst. They're the worst from what I was told by Brits. Okay, by Brits, what I was told.
Yeah.
With that, she was kind of coddled, in that one. But with this one, you're right. She was going to have to actually face up and own up to the fact of what she did, what happened in reality. So yeah, I think she was, of course, she was extremely defensive about that, because in a way you would kind of get defensive about, okay, I said one thing, but here's actually what happened, and I've got, a jury of 12 people who are going to decide what's going on. And I forget which part of the trial that she did this, and I'm forgetting which commentator said it. But she basically had to own up to the fact that the picture she painted did not jive with the evidence. And when I think one of the Law 2 commentators were like, wow, this is the first time she's actually looking at the jury and talking to the jury, looking at them as opposed to looking at her attorney for what was going on. They're like, yeah, I think she's really trying to, trying to convince them of not say innocence, but convince her that what she's saying is actually the truth. But yeah, by this time, things really didn't look all that great, for her, especially with being in, oh, well, I think she's still, I'm pretty sure she's still in Aquaman too. They didn't get rid of her out of that. But with Johnny, and that's what a big portion of this defamation case was, as soon as he was quote unquote accused, no proof, accused of being a domestic abuser. And I forget the magazine that Amber put her quote
It's
in.
probably People or something, right?
Something, one of those rags that really doesn't do due diligence. She put it out there. We knew exactly who she was talking about. And that was the crux of the issue. It couldn't say, "Oh, well, I was talking about anyone." No, we knew who you were married to at that time. So we know that you're talking about Johnny Depp. And because of that, Johnny was losing contracts. He was losing roles, like basically unceremoniously kicked out of Pirates of the Caribbean. Um, he took him out of Fantastic Beasts, which was probably the only reason I was going to go back and watch that. Oh, you have a picture for us? Let me see. Let me see.
That's the one, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Yes, I couldn't remember which one, but yes, this was exactly it. So this
And
was jealousy fights. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and so this was somewhat of a leading kind of picture, because what they did was they chose to show her forefront looking like she has a bruise or something like that. I believe that that was the controversy associated with this picture. And certainly that's, like this exclusive photo. What does it say? A friend of Heads took this photo, which
Mm-hmm.
shows injuries inflicted by Depp last December, and that's what it says in print. And
Mm-hmm.
that was 2016. So certainly there's no room for misinterpretation about what happened
None.
here. And relatively soon after they had been together, they haven't been together very long, but certainly that was the photo that people were questioning what is going on. What is she being abused? This, everybody believed this because we thought this was true. Because why would someone put a photograph of someone like this on there if that wasn't true? There was no reason to lie about this, was there? So this is another question. And
Mm-hmm.
even with, I'm not going to say it's one individual, but People Magazine also has to bear responsibility for what they've done with something like
Oh,
this.
absolutely.
Posting about
Absolutely.
the globe, and those, all of a sudden now People's becoming this tabloid-ish.
Mm-hmm.
People usually puts the best looking people on the picture, not people who get abused, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Not unless it's like I say a historical abuse that we're aware of. Like if they put a article about Ike and Tina Turner, we know about that.
Yes.
That's nothing new. But
Mhm.
to purposely put this photo on here and just say a friend took it, it's like anyone. I take this exactly as I say it. What's the authenticity with that picture? It's kind of like when you see, I mean, how many episodes of CSI have you seen where someone's like, okay, well, I've been abused. Next thing you know, they're actually the ones doing it to themselves, or the person that they accused of doing it. Turns out they weren't the ones actually doing it at all. It was somebody else. But this is such a serious charge. And again, with the Me Too movement and the outrage that happened, wound up with Johnny Depp losing a lot of money. I think I forget how many millions. It was in the double digits. It was not a small sum of money. For some reason, I'm thinking 50 million. But I think the only endorsement that he kept that kept him was Dior.
Right. Sauvage by Dior, right? So
Sauvage, yes. Oh,
I love
Sauvage,
it as
yes.
well. Um, and he pretty much was not just, and Lorena, you mentioned this already, but he pretty much was, the heart of so many franchises, and he became the heart of of the Wizarding World, playing Dumbledore, and he was great in that. And they had to kind of, quickly change and find a substitute. And you can't substitute certain actors; it doesn't work well. And I think it hurt the box office for that. I mean, of course, there's another guy in there who kind of hurt it, but even despite that, it hurt the box office tremendously. Despite the great performances by those actors, it killed the momentum of the story and certainly hurt that film. Not the Wizarding World itself, but the film didn't make as much as I feel it would have made if Depp had continued that role. He was wonderful in that, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it is something to think about, Lorena. And I think that by the time we saw a lot of this stuff coming up, what I noticed was that it is true that we did see people who were more biased and all that stuff and mean. It's true. I'm putting that out there. But certainly the end verdict, which ended up both parties having to pay restitution, I guess, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Was also very interesting because we do see this in a lot of cases where both parties end up having to do that. But certainly coming out of it, I think it really was needed to be done, because do I think Johnny's reputation is restored? No. But I think that he has to show that he needs to, and other men need to stand up when something like this happens to them. They can't be in a position where they're being taken advantage of. And that's what, for me, I feel like that was one of the major things that stood out in regards to this case, was that she wasn't willing to just go ahead and say we had a fight and things got out of control and I'm sorry it happened. It got to this point where, it's a court case and she didn't want to admit up until this point that it was about him. Like, I felt that was ridiculous. She was stringing him along professionally in a way.
Yeah, you really hit on something. You really did hit on something there. I think the absurdity and the audacity for her to basically say, "Oh, well, I wasn't talking, about Johnny." It's like, who else were you married to at that point in time? Any rational person could figure out that's who you were talking about. And we saw in real time with Johnny Depp, them not keeping him for Pirates of the Caribbean. And a lot of people on social media, including myself, we were like, if Johnny Depp is not Captain Jack Sparrow, I'm not there. I have zero interest in watching. And I think at that time, they were throwing out the idea of an all-female Pirates movie with Margot Robbie, and people were just like, is Johnny Depp in it?
Yeah.
Then I don't care. It's like, I really do not care. It's like, people, they want to see Captain Jack Sparrow. They want to see Johnny Depp, who's known for going to children's hospitals dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. And, we've seen that, and people absolutely, they love that character. So for her, with him losing all of that, and then for her to basically, I'm not going to say lie. I'm going to say misrepresent, or try to pull, basically, you tried to pull a Jedi mind trick, so to speak. We knew exactly who you were talking about. Everyone knew exactly who you were talking about. And because you said this, and it was taken at face value, because you remember the term that was out there was believe all women, believe all women. You should just believe all women, whenever they make an accusation, they have a right to be, they have a right to be believed. It's just like, no, you have a right to be heard. You have a right to prove your case. But just because you accuse someone of something, or you accuse your ex-husband of, hey, he's a domestic abuser, and there's no evidence to back that up, and said person, he winds up losing a good portion of his livelihood for that. Yeah, there need to be repercussions for that. That's why I was really glad that when it came to the award phase of this particular trial, that not only did I'm glad you found this. Because not only was Johnny awarded, damages, regular damages, but he was also awarded punitive damages.
Yes.
That's like to show just how egregious, an offense is. I mean, Amber, she got some money from a counterclaim. If you've ever watched the People's Court, you've seen people countersue people. It happens, and by the end, they're like, either your counterclaim is accepted or or denied or anything like that. But it's very important, and I'm very glad that they gave those punitive damages, because it shows, again, someone may not have the resources that Johnny Depp has, but that it's important that when you're accused of something like that and there is no evidence, we're talking, there really isn't any evidence whatsoever, that these
Yeah.
types of things are serious.
And I misspoke. Oops, I did not mean to do that.
Oh, that's okay. I thought we were going somewhere else.
I
okay.
realized that I said that he was Dumbledore. It was Grindelwald. So I apologize, guys.
Okay, I didn't see the film, and when I was gonna see it, I think this is when all this happened, and I was like, screw it, I'm not gonna watch it then.
And so this had literally just come out a day ago about Johnny Depp coming back, and how many people would be interested to see it. And of course, everybody wants to see it. Everybody wants to see it.
Oh, yeah.
We're all invested in this character. We love him as this character. But I wanted to show the Grindelwald picture, which you did, Lorena, and the Jack Sparrow character, which we're showing now, because he's such a fantastic character actor. He can make and break a franchise. Certainly, I think he would have revitalized the wizarding world, which had trouble when he left. It had trouble when he left that character. It's just the truth,
100%.
And so when he was Grindelwald, I was like, damn, he's dangerous. But he had a valid point. And I could see Bellatrix like going over to his side, because she's like, well, he's Johnny Depp. I mean, he's Grindelwald, and, he's hot, and I want to hang out with this bad guy. I understand how a lot of, the mechanics of that worked out, in the sense of a wizard being very seductive, being able to draw you over to their side, letting you see what happens. And he was almost gentle about it sometimes. That is why he is getting paid so much, because he's incredibly marketable. And, so this was incredibly damaging, as you said, Lorena. He probably lost like $200 or $300 million in the end with all this stuff.
It was, and I forget the exact amount that he had mentioned of how much he had lost. Sorry, I'm like looking at something on like the side,
go ahead and do that.
Side of my eye, but
and the final thing, and I'm sorry, the final thing.
No, go ahead.
Was that in this particular documentary, they did make a point of showing a lot of different sides. People who supported her, people who supported him, people who supported both or neither, people who thought it was ridiculous, people who said, well, the wording, you guys got the wording wrong. Well, here's an example of like 500 different, we got to see a lot of stuff that I felt was almost to a point where it was, even while we had vile comments, there was some civility to it, because people would get on there and say, well, I have seen that before. And you're like, oh, a real conversation like what we used to have, like an actual conversation about how you talk about different things that happen. This is happening. And so I think that it maybe even demonstrated that social media can have some aspects out there. We know the biases exist. We know that, favorites exist, but it can also come out to something constructive sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like knowing the difference between when your dog drops a tooth on your bed and it's nothing.
And it is true that we I think you and I were there, God help us, when it was announced and there was people jumping up and down for joy. And to be honest with you, I was just happy that it showed that you can't just say whatever you want to say about somebody like this.
Agreed.
And that there has to be consequences. And ironically, we've been having a lot of different people doing things like this on media, saying different things and not being held accountable. That's something that is unfortunately something that's still a reality of our world, but which is very different now. Before 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't just go ahead and blurt out stuff like that. With social media, it opened up the door for people to do that. Maybe not in this case, but certainly we see it now more than ever. But I'm glad that he had his day in court.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And two pictures I'm going to show you guys
Yes, yes.
to wrap up. First of all,
Yeah.
one, I love him as Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So sweet in this.
Just a wonderful, wonderful story, and just how he brought, this character to life. Because I know you were talking about what was it? What was it we were talking about? We were
Bellatrix
talking
Strange.
about just different characters that he's known and beloved for, just like
Oh, yeah.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yes.
Edward Scissorhands, like a childlike type of character, and you go from something that's very, very childlike to something like
Yes.
Sweetie.
And he's in this film with Helena Bonham Carter again, because they have such great chemistry on screen. She
Mm-hmm.
plays the woman, I don't remember the woman's name, but she's in the film, and they just on screen they explode. They were on screen in the other film too, the Grindelwald one. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lorraine. Go ahead. I got excited.
No.
Excited. They were so good in this. She played the woman who was making the meat pies out of human beings. And of course, Sweeney Todd was there, coming back to the UK to find someone very important. And what chemistry they had in this musical. Johnny Depp was wonderful in this, along with Helena Bonham Carter and the rest of the cast. Certainly a wonderful performance, which I felt resonated also in the Grindelwald thing. I can't even say what it's called, but where they were back together again in that film. So, sometimes you have these pairings of actors who just glow when they're on screen together, and they were that way, I think, in a lot of their performances together. I don't know how many they had together, but I loved him as Sweeney Todd. Lorraine, what did you think when you first saw him as this character?
It was crazy. I'm just like, oh my God, it just had like this seductive quality, to him. And it was a type of character that I hadn't really seen him as before. Usually, he's a pretty good guy, or childlike, kind of guy, or out there playing like director Ed Wood, Plan 9 from outer space, or as in the character in Sleepy Hollow, which I loved too. Sleepy Hollow
Yes.
was freaking awesome. I loved that. If you are a fan of the Washington Irving short story, to see it, just the color palette, just the way that everything is, and him in that, investigating what's going on and the secret of the headless horseman. It's so much fun. It's such
It
a
really
fun thing.
is. And it's, something from a different era that he brings to life so well. I thought that was also very important, to see a person who can bring a character like that alive when, for the most part, it may not be part of our regular vernacular. They were in The Corpse Bride together, Johnny Depp and Helen Bonham Carter.
Yes, I love that one so much.
Yes. And certainly that was something to think about. But they were also in, it says they were in Dark Shadows, where he played, of course, a vampire, and she was a doctor in it. And they had that incredible chemistry again. But to be honest with you, he's just splendid in difficult to play characters where you need someone who's a full force individual who can bring characters to life and we can believe in them. And certainly we see that again and again and again with Johnny Depp in pretty much every role he plays.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, this was so good, Lorraine, this Corpse Bride. I loved this. Of course, it was an animated feature. And I think this is another one of these that took like 4 or 6 years to make, right? Where they both were so remarkable. It's amazing how he just is so great at movies like this, really giving us a different point of view. And it's it's almost like they were tailor made for him. His talent really shines when he plays these roles that require this special attention to the character's details, personality,
Mhm.
aesthetic, the character's aesthetic of what they're looking for in life. They're not ordinary characters. And, certainly he's not an ordinary actor. He's extraordinary.
He's absolutely, absolutely extraordinary. And people of all ages, kids, the stop action animated film Rango, where he's like this gecko sheriff or something like that. Johnny Depp is just, his voice and his acting is endearing to so many people, which is why, again, I am really glad that he took this step to clear his name. And I also think probably another reason that he also did that is because he knows how important his fans are to him, and it's just like, I don't want my fans, other, people in general, yeah, whatever. But the people who have followed my career, who've supported me, who have seen my movies, who come to my concerts, who's donated to my charity, events, those are the people that I feel I need to clear my name to, because I don't want them thinking this about me when it is not, when it is not true. And just the outpouring when the verdict came back, the way that it did, I was so happy for him. As a Johnny Depp fan, I was happy to find out that what we thought was true. He's not, he's not, yeah, he said some messed up stuff because, happens in a marriage. Yes, he had a troubled childhood. We knew that. Yes, there was substance abuse issues. This is Hollywood. He's been very forthright with that, with what happened, especially when we know what happened, at the Viper Room, all those years ago. But yeah, I am just happy again that he stood up, because it's very important to not have a society where men can just be accused of things, just be accused without proof. Um, and just know, and it feeds into that. So now people will think twice. It's not it's not believe all. It's not believe all women. We'll listen, but where's your evidence? And we can't just go canceling men because of something that you heard they might have done. So I've noticed the whole cancel culture thing is kind of, you don't really hear much about Me Too. I believe the Me Too uh, group finally shuttered its doors, so to speak. So I just cannot wait to see what's coming next from Johnny Depp. And I know he's just elated that, his fans know what he knows about what happened.
Absolutely. Certainly, this is a step in the right direction. And I am happy that, just like you, that he was able to finally have his day in court and kind of resolve this. I think it's resolved now. He can go on to doing what he does best, which is pursuing roles or doing whatever he wants to do with the rest of his life. And certainly, and I know there was a lot of speculation about their careers, but I think both of them, their careers are going to be fine. Like, they're going to still get roles and everything.
Yeah, they'll get stuff. Amber's got to get roles because she's got some legal bills that she needs to pay. I mean, it's like it is what it is. But yeah, they're able to go on, and again, they're good. They're gonna be fine. They're gonna be fine. Amber's gonna be fine. She's a beautiful girl in Hollywood. She'll get work.
Yeah, she will. And
She'll.
we're all anticipating Johnny Depp doing whatever he wants, because we know we're going to love it when he makes it. So, but certainly this is a very interesting documentary, Lorraine. I got to give them the thumbs up. This is one of the best documentaries I've seen on this. Maybe the best one I've seen in a while, showing so many different points of view and so many different people people who were watching it. It really was enjoyable to watch this documentary.
It was. I haven't had a documentary hold my opinion like this since the one on the Fire Festival. Oh, they're doing another
Oh
one.
God, can you believe that? I can't believe that this guy is out of prison and he's organizing another one. Well, let's see what happens for Fryer Part 2. I can't. I can't.
I can't. I can't, but I'm so there to watch the darn garbage fire, let me tell you.
We know it's gonna be crazy.
We totally know it's going to be crazy. I know one thing, it's not going to be in the Bahamas.
No,
Mm,
it's not.
no, nah. You
You think
still owe people money.
I think it might be in a state that begins with the letter F.
Man, if that happens, you know I'm driving up there to see what's going on. You know I have to find out.
Well, I'm
Oh
just trying to think
man.
of the easiest place they could, that he might be able to do it.
Yeah, it'll probably be maybe one of those isolated keys. Won't be Key West for sure, but
No. They would never stand for that.
it'll be like probably one of those barrier keys, probably some island off the coast of Floribama. That's what I'm thinking is probably.
Maybe some island that by the time the festival comes around, it'll be underwater. Who knows?
Oh well,
Yesterday.
now it's not there now. Sorry. Well, my dear, please let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, guys, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Positive Fandom, where I do all the parlay in the fandom. My Sunday brunch shows at Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also do live watch parties. Tonight, I'm going to be doing a watch party of Narvik. It is a historical World War II film with Darth Plato on my channel around 6:15, 6:30. We're going to start that tonight. And then later tonight, I'm also going to be on Uncivilized Scoundrels talking about the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka and Star Wars and more on either the 1/6 Scale Man Network or Uncivilized Scoundrels. You can always find me here on Lorraine's channel. This is her Twitch channel tonight, but also on her YouTube channel where we do watch parties and reviews as well. Lorraine and I have a show on the Bird Network on Monday nights called Ladies of the PGS at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're not going to be doing it for the holiday but we will be coming back when we take a little break from the holiday because Lorraine and I need to relax. We need a little bit of time to recharge, just like all of you do. But we love doing that show and so much more. Lorraine, you did a live watch party with me on my channel for Outlander. It's been such a great experience doing all these great watch parties and entertainment news with you, Lorraine. We even covered this trial for like 2 years. And so much more, Lorena. It's such a pleasure to be here for Toxic Male Appreciation. And thank you for having me here.
Oh, well, thank you always for being here, my dear. I so appreciate doing this show with you. Folks, as of course, I'll be on Ladies of the PGS on Mondays. Let's see what's going on this week. That's a darn shame. I'm trying to think. I'm actually going over to WDW Pros live show. So I'm going to be over there for the second hour. I have no idea what I'm walking in. I'll get hit with questions. Usually I drop on the panel and just ask me questions. We kind of go on from there. Please do pay attention to my channel for my reviews of Ahsoka, which I've started to watch. So you'll see my reviews kind of coming out about that. I did a trailer reaction to The Expendables 4. God, I cannot freaking wait. It's a red band trailer. I cannot wait. So I dropped that video. Please do check that out as well. And Saturday, I will be streaming live from the annual pass holder appreciation event at Universal Orlando over in Islands of Adventure. We have the whole park as pass holder for several hours, but for an hour, I'm going to let you guys see what Universal is letting us do over there in the park. I'm going to try to see how many times I can ride a Velocicoaster
Wow.
in a row. I can't wait for that. So, folks, as always, thank you so much for watching. Definitely check out that Netflix documentary, Depp versus Heard, and let us know in the comments if you've seen it, what you think about it, and kind of like what are your reflections on the trial this long after it's been over. So thanks again, as always, for watching. Please do subscribe to of Positive Fandom, and we, of course, will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.